please join in welcoming Professor Devarshi Mukherjee here. Sir, you are very well welcome here. Before moving forward with the program, I would like to introduce about our esteemed resource person here. So Professor Devarshi Mukherjee is an Professor Devarshi Mukherjee is an esteemed academician with a rich and diverse background in education, research and administration. Currently, he is serving as a professor in the Department of Commerce and Business Studies at Jamia Millia Islamia, New Delhi. Professor Mukherjee's contributions are beyond the traditional academia, as by his establishment of the state first fully funded business incubator by Ministry of MSME, Government of India. He also delivered over 100 invited talk and chaired technical sessions at prestigious institutions and at events worldwide. I would like to welcome Professor Devarshi Mukherjee. Please share your valuable knowledge and experience with us, sir. So please, sir.
Thank you for the nice welcome. Usually, the profile is read longer, but I'll congratulate you for keeping it short and crisp. So, yeah, that's the way I think a management professor should speak. So,
thank you, sir.
And it's my privilege that I have been invited here by now the Professor, Honorable Vice Chancellor Jena sir. I think I can see ma'am is there, so association goes long back, and I would be happier that we could all today at this time. And let me share the screen that will go just a moment. Just giving a heads up, the screen is visible. Is it visible now? Is my screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I think I'll be the topic we're talking about very much time to go through the entire list of speakers, but perhaps I'll be talking something which is of common interest right here. I presume the teachers who are attending this FDP. So primarily they come from diverse backgrounds, so therefore I have kept it to, I've been restricted to the management discipline per se, but it covers almost all broad domains of academia, including social science, engineering, even into some extent medical issues as well, because somewhere down the line I believe that these subject domains fuse as we go up the ladder. So the two important attributes that would mark this discussion today, and perhaps I'll be deliberating for I think 1 hour or 1 hour 15 minutes with you all. The two-pronged approach that we take. One is the learning continuity part, another is the social intelligence part. Now, I do not know whether there is enough familiarity among the group or the cohort which is attending today about the subject and the discipline, but I think we'll be able to have a good time in understanding and decorate the session with the embellishments of facets of learning continuity, and at the same time we'll try to explore the domains of social intelligence. That's the reason we gave it a name and theory of practice. So having said that, let me set the scope for the talk today. We have intentionally kept it, and that's the reason I call it the caveat. We'll be only talking about the andragogy, because I presume that the be any other flood situations. In Northeast, we encounter there are floods which actually put a restriction for the institutions to run smoothly. During those things, whether due to some social calamity or natural calamity, or there are some social interjections which prevent the learning to proceed in its natural speed. So learning continuity suggests that there should be a technology intervention at the appropriate pace, so that whenever there is we hit some blockage, learning must not be disrupted. So it's like the prevention of disruption, not to create one. And that essentially, that idea comes back from the agility. Agility means, your cycle time, so that response time is very fast. If anybody is from the supply chain domain sitting in this room, they would understand the fact that agility or the quick response time marks the ability of an institution to respond to a crisis situation. So that basic idea is drawn from the Industry 4.0 idea and then imbibed into Education 4.0. It says that even if I find that my students are not learning properly the way they should, I go for course correction. Now, for the archaic institutions which having a very mammoth-like syllabus-oriented structure, despite students' learning gain is not properly measured, and we keep on feeding them the same content again and again. So those issues usually cripple the learning process. So sitting here, our job is to ensure the students learn better. Now, what kind of ecosystem we are talking about? That ecosystem is about an institution, maybe the university where you teach or the college where you teach. So this is not an iconoclastic setup. Remember this thing. This is not an organized. Any questions? I hear some voice. Is there any question?
No, sir. Please continue.
Okay, thank you. So primarily, what we are trying to address here is that we need to identify the basic premise. Yeah, you can just switch off that mic basically. It's hindering. Yeah, thank you. So when we talk about an institution, these things are not an everyday body anymore. It is rather a complex adaptive system. Now, why I'm talking about complex? Because there are traditional teaching, fixed curriculum. Remember the university we talked about collaboration, is collaborative with this. That different institutions they join hands and they deliver research projects. And more importantly, if I'm talking about the andragogical setup, we have the peer group learning. So let's say you are teaching an MBA class or MCOM class, you offer a content to them, teach them, and it may so happen the students in your class may like to discuss it out amongst themselves. And perhaps they have a better thorough understanding. Once you have taught them, they discuss among themselves and find it out some more meaning out of it, and they come back. This is the ideal structure. And from your near and dear ones. So that soft part is that makes you intelligent. You may not be very good at everything, but if you are a good singer, that also makes you intelligent. If you are able to understand the communication being read to you, that makes you intelligent. So essentially, Howard Gardner's 9 intelligence, multiple intelligence theory says that there are 9 types of intelligence. Now, social intelligence it talks about by Edward Thorndike since 1920, which were again popularized by Goldman in 2000. Now we talk about the problems. I hope you will agree with me. First problem, that whatever I have argued in the last 20-24 years of small time which I have spent in academics, I could find out is that in tertiary education, the maturity is one thing that prevents learning. This is for me, is the biggest challenge, because students, when they come from the school system kind of rote learning, they had practiced. Evolving from there, coming to a level when they are able to articulate, they are able to behave responsibly in learning endeavor, that is a big challenge. Second, we talk about the mobility. So the platform independent activity, because mostly if I am taking in a physical classroom, suddenly if I switch to Google Classroom, if I get unnerved, perhaps that might create my learning at very inhibiting mode. And the third is that management. This is one important aspect, primarily, that how the syllabus is moving. What are the interventions I have created to assess? You may say there are periodic tests are being done. Are these tests sufficient to capture that students are learning? Are these tests, presentations, whatever thing that you have made are sufficient enough to make sure that whatever you want to impart to the students, they are learning? And then next thing is that we need to have an LMS. I presume these days mostly the universities which are financially savvy, they are using it. So they need to understand and locate the students and their progress. So this is the setup what everybody needs. So primarily what we are talking about, that if we are empathetic to our students, we will be having a mechanism to track their movement in our journey to learning. Now that takes us to another interesting fact about learning analytics, but I will not spend much time today on that, because that itself is a very big subject. So learning analytics, I just put a Q here. This is what the good institutes are doing. So primarily, there are students before they drop out of the college, students, they show some fatal syndromes. So those things that they exhibit, they drop few cues are there. So learning analytics is there to capture. I think I'll just go back to the pre-college one, like quota incidents. I hope we are all following them. But had there been a proper analytics tool in place, we could have prevented loss of such young lives. But unfortunately, no one is caring it, because they are not looking at the progress or the gradual movement they are doing. Many institutes, including LSE, London School of Economics and Political Science, they do have a LMS in place. They continuously monitor how students are doing. If they find their deterioration in their performance, immediately the council have done so. So now this is the way you have to go for handholding and take them forward. That's the way the analytics exists. Now there are dropout prediction systems, live statistics about the student. Then you can monitor the individual vis-a-vis group progress prediction. Because it is not that end of the semester you publish some result and tell them that you passed, you failed, you scored A, you scored C. This is not going to help the student. So I have been shouting the top of my voice. If that thing is happening, if a student is not doing well, the student needs to be taken under the fold at the very early stage, before it is too late for any kind of corrections to be done. Fine. Now initially what we had the theoretical part with chalk and chalk model, then the technology part was there for visualization, then we have the mentoring part and counseling. So this is essentially important for measurement of learning here. I hope as we progress you are trying to regress, or you may try to look at what are the things that are done at your level, could be done or at the institutional level to help the students grow. So now in this model we talk about basic theory, then we have the visualization part, mentoring is future scope, and counseling is the essential part, which is a kind of tool, or rather I not call it as a mechanism for any students to improve further. Now, what happens if we look at the reflective domain which we have seen in the learning domains previously, which is an articulation part, charge around 2 lakhs to 4 lakhs, so which is almost during that thing, it's a 1 year semester fee for an for a BTech program in a good place. So people are paying. So now why people are paying? Because they find value inside. So therefore, if your model is offering value, then perhaps you can see some kind of resurgence. And more importantly, two factors which have emerged over a period of time is metacognition and meta-literacy. Again, the psychological standpoint. I said as you progress upward, there is, except psychology and philosophy, there is no such. So metacognition primarily talks about and both are about own assessment. Let's say how much I think I know of a subject, how much I think I can connect with the subject. This assessment is metacognition and meta-literacy. Now, if I think that I know subject A but not B, so I'll enroll for subject B. If I know that I know A and B but I need some practical training on it, I enroll for that kind of subject. So need-based programs are coming up. This is the future of education which I am trying to set before you. Before it hit us, we should be prepared to, articulate ourselves for that kind of damage. Now, second, another thing, this is one of my scholars have worked on in the good research that we did. It tells that the factors in a gas, the most important factor is the teacher support, and which means the empathy and guidance. So essentially, a student can learn from you if the student trusts you, and if the student will only going to trust you if they can find empathy within you. So no one thing as teachers that primarily we should have enough empathy, and you will develop empathy for the student if you know the subject well. Because if you know the subject well, you know what are the problems the student might face. And if you know what the student might face, and if they are facing those problems, you will feel empathetic towards them. And trust me, this work has been done with, I think, a good number of respondents across India, across disciplines, and this percentage has surfaced. So I have reasons to believe that students, they do not only die for content, they do not only die for methodology. Primarily, they look for the empathetic support from their teachers. Now, this is the matrix which I have applied for a patent. So this matrix is, I hope you can, try it at your class and find out that in which quadrant your students are falling. So these are the 4 quadrants or 4 cohorts in which every student falls across. So rote learnings are those who cram things. So the engagement is very high, but they give very less time to it. So when you have less time and you have to complete or cover a wide distance, you try to mark things up. There is the rote learners. Then you have the induced learners who have just started to learn. So their engagement is very low. At the same time, their time management is very, very poor. So maybe in the beginning of a semester you can see. Then we have the traditional learners. If they wait for the semester to get over, and they have ample time to read, but content engagement is very poor. That means they do not articulate much. They just whatever is with them, they study it, takes a lot of time for preparation, and their learning is somewhat moderate. But our objective is to have a mature group of learners who would be having high content engagement, and also time engagement would be very high. So that means they are able to articulate, they can take care of other students. So our objective is as teachers that we need maximum density of our students in this form. Fine. Now, the area of research which I was talking about, it has got a premise. Which premise says that each student may reflect the characteristics of all the quadrants which was saying. A student is not only mature, it is not possible. A student would be mature for, let's say, marketing, but for IT or operations may exhibit induced, traditional, or any characteristics. And more importantly, these positions are not stationary. So, it cannot remain a single cohort. In
that you showed everywhere, like the research part that we showed, like how the results were there by using that matrix. It was wonderful, sir. So when I jump into the question, so right now I have this one question from one of our participants, and it is from Bandita Majumdar. So the person was asking, like, how to deal with the regular absentees in undergraduate level.
See, the absenteeism is an administrative activity. So two things are there. It's one is academic part. We discussed about the academic part, but since I have been a head for 6 years of a department, so I can understand this is a really challenging part. So what you need to do is that the student needs to be told, you have to be empathic. You have to find out the reasons why they are absent. For example, right now in Jamia, Ramzan is going on. So many students do not come and they keep fast throughout the day. But I think some of the subjects, even they are fasting, and mostly they attend the classes. So if they find value in your proposition, I am not demeaning you, I am not saying that whatever you are doing is not good. But if they find value in your proposition and they will automatically connect with you, then only they will be able to come and present. The important part is that our education system lacks in mapping of the content. That if I am teaching subject A, why I am offering that course? What is the efficacy of that course? How it connects to the next semester and next and subsequent semester? This activity is to be taken very seriously. And for you, I think, Madam Majumdar, I think you may need to interact with your class and ask them the reason for their absenteeism. They are in the best place to tell you. They could be having more important time in your class. I think that is the answer. You will concentrate on those who are attending the classes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for the valuable answer. Thank you.
I request the faculty members and the other participants, if you have any questions, you may please ask your questions from the sir. Anyone with a question, please? Okay. So I have questions. As you mentioned about the maturity level of the students. So this is something that I usually face, and maybe many of the participants may face here. That you told that there is an immaturity among the students, like among the peer groups. So they feel that if someone is good, and as you mentioned about the buddy system also, even if you do that, there is some kind of immaturity among the students. They don't feel like, even the postgraduate students may feel something like, they may feel why this is happening, why they're asking us this thing, and why they're giving the buddy system, why there is need of another student to help us. So how we can create that kind of collaborative among all the students, that we need to work together, how we can inculcate that kind of environment within the classroom. So what would be your suggestion?
I presume what you are trying to understand or ask is that the purpose of doing these activities. That's the very fundamental nature why you should be doing it. Because if you start teaching, let's say, if you allow me, which subject do you teach, by the way?
So I'm taking organizational behavior and
Perfect. You are the best suited for this. So if you know, an organization sustains only when there is cohesion in the group. So in the first day, if you start teaching the subject, so perhaps they may not accept it because they have a legacy which is coming down the line. The first thing, if you ask me what I do not teach on the first day. I discuss the syllabus with them. And I ask them, tell me which part do you think is most important in this series. In Jamia, we have a practice that syllabus is shared across by the office to all students. They all have their mobile or laptop. So I open the piece of paper. The moment now I think earlier I used to use
Yes, sir, absolutely. The thing that you taught, because these are the mindset of the students. Like a few of the students, specifically in the commerce and the management background, they have this idea in their mind: we have to do our business, we have to open our own business, we have to join our father's business. Ma'am, they do this is so very easy. Perception is very easy. They have this kind of thought. Like I started perception. They are like, ma'am, this is very easy. Why do we need to study this? This is very easy. I mean, this thing happened with them. So this was a reason, like how should I tell them, like, you know, they are like, ma'am, this is very easy, we have to do the business. So this is why I want to know, and so you really answer really well. I'll definitely inculcate this point into my class, definitely for sure, and I definitely hope that, you know, they get into the synchronization of what I am, you know, teaching them. Thank you, sir.
And more importantly, I'll tell you, I'll give you a cue. If you find trouble, I mean, I do not know if you could bring Genocide to the class. He is the person who creates magic inside the class. He used to do it. I don't know whether he teaches or not today, these days. But if you can bring him to that, you will find that he has the mastery of doing that thing. I have seen him doing it, because you know that takes a lot of some kind of experience. When you grow mature, you can do that. But experiential learning comes with age. But till then, you can take up these exercises that I said, that would be able to help you connect them, bind them. Fine.
Thank you, sir. Any other participant who is eager to ask any question from sir? So we have one question. Yes, from Dr. Jyoti. So she is asking that during classroom teaching, how we can encourage students for subjective learning and create a congenial environment.
Okay, ma'am, first thing is that congenial environment is the first thing that you need to create. Then only the learning can be first. Mostly we do to the contrary. We start teaching and then we try to develop the environment. See, environment is always the precursor that leads to an learning part. Because you have to understand, a student inside the classroom is very vulnerable. I mean, not physically but emotionally. Now what happens, we may be teaching one or two subjects, but they are studying 4 or 5 credits. So compartmentalizing their mind to concentrate on one subject is not an easy task. So what you need to create an environment by connecting of what. If I am teaching, let's say, e-business, so I try to connect it with strategic management, I try to connect with financial accounting, I try to connect it with psychology, I try to connect with sociology. So now if I am creating an ambient environment for them, obviously I have captured the students in my control. And now since I have the attention right now, I start to permeate it down what is important for them. If not through cases, then the content. If not to the direct theoretical content, to some examples. If not example, I go for storyboarding. Something or the other we have to do. Firstly, remember, what I do is to ensure the students are agreeing to learn from me. Then only we can have the components permeate down. Until I'm
Yes, sir. I understand, sir. One thing I need to ask from the same is expected to the Dr. Jyoti ma'am question only. You have also mentioned that past question also like to bind the student. You are saying that to bind the students within the initial 10 to 15 minutes. So that is the reason I'm asking like how. Like in the first class you mentioned that even first or two classes you may go through the syllabus and everything. But sometimes what happens when we are in continuity of the class, the students are they may feel a boredom that they can learning every day. So what could be new techniques that we can introduce initial of the 10 to 15 minutes to bind the students? What we can use, how we can generate the maximum learning of the students here.
Okay, let me ask you one thing. Do you plan your lessons each day or for each class?
Yes, sir. I need what the topic that I am choosing that I need to teach.
No, lesson plan means your hourly, you need to split your time chapter wise, topic wise, subject wise.
Yes,
sir. And how you are going to teach them. Like you have heard about ACSB parameters. ACSB talks about each module which you are going to teach needs to be connected with the subsequent topics. So once you are having your lessons well planned, so you will rehearse it. Now once you have rehearsed it, you know what are the gaps perhaps you need to cover and how you can enchant them with the example story. You do not start with story, you may start with a case. You may connect with the movie, the youth connects well. Maybe a rock concert that has happened in your city, maybe an incident that has happened in your city, and then how the company do it. Don't give them a 7-page case. Start with a narration. So story building, storyboarding is something even the most obstinate student would pay some attention. And how you can intrinsically add value to those components. And then you come to the topic. So somewhere or the other, these modulations will help. Right? Because theatrics is one thing which is taught in UK school and US schools, that which is more like an acting play, how you are going to correct them. They should not be bored. I mean bored in the sense they get bored when they disconnect with you because if there is a monotony in them. That happens to us. Now you have to break the monotony. How you will break the monotony? You need to create waves in your brain. So there should be something that what's next? Now I must start this thing. What I am going to teach next? So I and my class, tomorrow we are going to discuss this. You come prepared. I know nobody will come prepared, or some students will come prepared. I start from there, asking questions, engaging them. So if they have something to engage, if you are teaching them simply one-way communication, obviously not a difficult. But if you want to give them smaller tasks, okay, ye padh ke aana, come prepare, we talk about this. Somewhere or the other you can create an environment. So now the lesson plan is the only thing
wonderful, sir, wonderful. Any other